US and Russia confirm Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia. European leaders express concern. Good evening, this is Sal Pierre with your latest news update. In a significant move, the United States and Russia have confirmed plans for high-level discussions aimed at resolving the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The talks will take place this week in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, marking the beginning of a new phase in the diplomatic efforts to end the war. However, European leaders are expressing growing concern over being excluded from the process, signaling a potential shift in the global security landscape. Both the US and Russian governments confirm that their top officials would meet in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, February 20, 2025. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Kremlin advisor Yuri Ushakov will represent Moscow, while US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff will lead the American delegation. The two sides are expected to lay the groundwork for peace talks and discuss ways to end the conflict that has devastated Ukraine since Russia's invasion nearly 3 years ago. This announcement follows a phone call between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, where both leaders agreed to begin negotiations. Trump has suggested a potential direct meeting with Putin soon to further explore solutions. While the US and Russia press forward, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has made it clear that Kyiv will not take part in the Riyadh talks. He voiced concerns about being sidelined in the negotiations, adding that Ukraine would not recognize any agreements made without its involvement. Zelenskyy is scheduled to visit Saudi Arabia separately on Wednesday to meet with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for updates on the proceedings. Meanwhile, European leaders are deeply worried about the absence of a European presence in the discussions. In Paris, EU officials are urgently meeting to strategize on how to address the US policy shift and safeguard Europe's security interests. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stressed that Europe's security is at a turning point, calling for a surge in defense capabilities. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk warned that Europe must urgently strengthen its defenses to effectively counter Russia's growing military power. In Moscow, Russian officials have downplayed European involvement, with Lavrov suggesting that including European representatives in ceasefire talks would be counterproductive. Lavrov accused European nations of wanting to prolong the war, adding that they should not be invited to the negotiating table if their goal was to continue the conflict. Amid growing tensions, Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares voiced concerns over the potential for peace talks to reward Russian aggression, emphasizing that a war of aggression should not be rewarded under any circumstances. As US-Russia talks unfold in Saudi Arabia, European leaders are left to grapple with their diminished role in the peace process, raising questions about the future of transatlantic relations and Europe's role in shaping the post-war order. This is Sal. Stay tuned here for more updates coming. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the next few days will be critical in determining whether Russian President Vladimir Putin is serious about peace in Ukraine. Rubio made these comments after US officials traveled to Saudi Arabia to meet with Russian representatives, hoping to kickstart discussions aimed at ending the ongoing conflict. In an interview with CBS, Rubio emphasized that while President Trump had spoken with Putin last week, urging an end to the war while protecting Ukraine's sovereignty, true peace would require concrete actions. Rubio stressed that one conversation is not enough to guarantee peace, and the coming days would show whether Putin is genuinely committed. Concerns were raised in Europe about being sidelined in initial talks between Russia and the US, however. Rubio dismissed these fears, explaining that meaningful negotiations will involve Ukraine and European nations, given their direct stake in the conflict. He noted that any peace deal will. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has called an emergency summit with European leaders to discuss the Ukraine situation, following comments from Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, that raised alarms in Europe. European officials are wary of the Trump administration's approach to both Ukraine and European defense, fearing that they may lose US military support and that a peace deal with Putin might compromise Ukraine's sovereignty and European security. As the situation develops, US Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz are expected to meet with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia to explore potential peace efforts. Rubio acknowledged that the Russian delegation's details were still being finalized. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has once again made it clear that Ukraine will not accept a peace deal made between the United States and Russia without Ukraine's involvement. In an appearance on NBC's Meet the Press, Zelenskyy emphasized that he will not accept any agreement about Ukraine's future unless his country is directly involved in the discussions. Zelenskyy's comments come after a week of similar statements in Europe. And now, addressing an American audience, he reiterated his stance: "I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine, never. This is the war in Ukraine, against us, and it's our human losses." The remarks come at a time when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is preparing to meet with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia in the coming days. However, as Zelenskyy pointed out, a Ukrainian delegation will not be part of these talks, further highlighting Kyiv's insistence on being included in any peace negotiations. Stay tuned for further updates on this developing story. This is Sal Pierre, keeping you informed on the latest from Ukraine and beyond. This is Sal. Thank you for watching. We promise to bring headlines and detailed reports mostly as the events are happening. Please subscribe to the channel, like and share our videos. We appreciate your support so much.